Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Selena here at Sunny Sage 11 and welcome if this is your first time tuning into my channel. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel as well. I really want to grow this community here on YouTube, and if you've been following along, I also have a playlist in the description below, but I am currently on a 30-day video challenge and it is day 7. So I actually got this inspiration for this topic shortly after I did my previous video in the evening, or I guess early hours of the morning, past midnight. I don't know what brought it to my mind, but I don't know if I was watching another YouTuber like talking about their journals or their child. You know what it was? I was watching an Instagram post from a woman who does a lot of spiritually based videos and, considering our intuition, and her topic was related to like speaking to your younger self. And as I was watching it, I got this jolt of like, pull up your journal that you saved from your high school years, which when I was getting ready to come back to Korea, I definitely had to fine tune and decide what would come and what would be thrown away, donated, or just trashed. And so some of the items I knew I wanted to bring with me were some of my favorite books, but also like certain journals that I've kept since, my teenage years. So I have journals that I kept in college, so I've always been like a consistent journaler. I think I started writing in my first diary at 10. I called it my diary. Now I just say journal, but I had my first diary when I was in 5th grade, and I've just always been journaling ever since. So this was one particular journal that I did keep from high school, and I even, to kind of keep them organized, I decided to date it. So this journal I wrote in from April of 2003 until August of 2004. So this was age 16 to 17, turning 18. I had some entries after my 18th birthday. So from 16 to a few months after the age of 18. So a lot of junior year, senior year, experiences. And, if you're from the States like me, and I'll kind of get into this later, but I'm not sure yet what I'm going to title this video. You'll know what it's going to be titled once you're watching it. But the theme that I'm trying to aim at, it relates to if I were to speak to my younger self and things that I'm more aware of now, as far as stepping into my own, getting rid of past thought patterns that were instilled in me through my upbringing, where perhaps my parents thought that, we think this is for the best, or they're pretty much raising you under some of the mindsets that they have around ways to show up in the world, which may not be for your highest good. I'm at the point where I have made peace with, they didn't know what was best. This is what they thought was best. And so they were just raising me based on where they were. And I still see there is still healing that has to take place, as far as even conversations that, are still had, with family members. I'm at the place where I realize I'm not here to change anyone. I can recognize what does need to still be healed, but I know that I don't carry that with me anymore, that I've released that, and I've now shifted my mindset into another frame of thought, another frame of being. And so one of the things, and I had to take some notes in my current journal, the journals continue. One thing that I had to write down for this particular video was, when we have daughters, and the importance of embedding the message within them that they don't need to chase after, people, connections, and friendships, or boys, when you're a little girl and you have that crush on a boy in school, you don't need to chase those boys. You need, and we need to help young women and young girls understand that they are enough as they are, and they don't need to be in a chasing energy, that they need to understand that they have the power to attract what is for them and the people that are for them. And I know in high school there were many moments, and this was because I thought as I was a kid, I was raised to like, well, if you want something, go after it, and you need to be the one to make the move, and you need to be the one, or it's going to pass you by. And now I've stepped away from that. I've released that and really found a way to heal the part of my feminine aura that knows I don't need to chase after people or after connections, and knowing that what's meant for me is going to come towards me. And if it's aligned in the right way, then it will come towards me. I don't need to chase and blind myself to what really is meant to come my direction. And that wasn't something that I knew as a kid because I wasn't raised, to embody that mindset. My parents just didn't have that awareness. My mom didn't have that awareness of embedding the thought pattern of you should attract, don't chase after. I don't even think it was even a conversation that came up, because I know even in the family that I'm a part of, that there are things that still need to be healed in my feminine family dynamic. And so I think that being in that environment, that there were things that were just ingrained into my mind that I thought this is how I should be. But now I know better now. I'm like, this was how I was raised, and I'm going to move that out of my thoughts and out of my system because I know that's not going to serve me. And I have tons of evidence as far as how it did not serve me. And now that I'm on this new path, and I think also changing my name also helped to support me stepping into my own and stepping into a more higher level of feminine energy that is not trying to chase after or change people or try to just exert that kind of influence over others in that way, and not feeling, well, as a child, I believe it kind of set a pattern of thinking that I was not enough unless I did something. And that's completely, thrown out the window for me now. Like, I don't need to chase. I am enough as I am. And if you're a woman who's watching this, or if you have daughters, I think that it is so important that we help young girls recognize that you don't need to chase. You don't need to feel that you're not enough unless you do something. Like, I have to be like the one to make the first move or to do this and do that. And, the more we can remind ourselves that we are meant to attract and magnetize those right opportunities and people towards us, because it also allows us to use our intuition in a strong way to really recognize. And it's like when we're chasing after something, it kind of turns off our intuition because we're in that active masculine chasing, position, and we should not be in that type of a position. So in the process of coming to this awareness last night of like, oh, I need to talk about this, it had me pull up my journal from my high school senior year. And again, if you're from the States, like the whole high school senior year, senior prom is like the big thing, like when you're graduating from high school. Honestly, looking back, I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of things, and this goes into wanting to please your parents. From my high school prom experience, for one, prom is definitely a money machine. It's a money maker for the dress companies, and it's like and it's not the end all be all, to be honest. Like, when I think about high school, like, prom was okay, but it's like it wasn't the end all be all. And I think that for my parents' generation, I think that prom was like this huge deal, like back in the 70s, and like, we can't wait for our kids to go to prom, and it's like, oh, this major milestone. Everyone is you're entitled to feel a way about prom the way you choose to. My perspective on prom is, I think that buying a dress that you're only going to wear one time for that one day. Like, in my case, I literally finally donated my prom dress before I left the States last year. Like, I had it in a box. I only wore the dress once. I was like, my mom spent all this money on a dress that I only wore one time. And I think that if there isn't already, then there should definitely be a business where girls can just rent prom dresses and then return them. They don't need to spend all this money on a prom dress that they're only going to wear one time, most likely. So from that, my high school prom experience, it really showed me, and not just, this is not the first time I've reflected upon this, when I really started to look at how I was raised to kind of be like in this chasing energy. Like, my high school prom experience was a prime example of it, where I'm the only daughter in my family. So my dad had one daughter, And I think that he had these high expectations about, he wanted me to go to prom. He wanted to make sure I had a date. And so when I was in my senior year, I remember there was a boy in my high school. I think he asked me, and I kind of liked him. I think I just told him, I think I said no at the time. I had a crush on like this other boy in my homeroom, and I had a bunch of other classes with this particular boy. And I really liked this other guy a whole lot. I didn't tell him I liked him. I didn't really even tell my best friend. Like, I was really like secretive about having a big crush on this guy. And so when it got to like 3 to 4 months before, prom was, scheduled to happen, my dad's like, oh, well, do you have a date? Do you have a date? And I think for my dad, he felt that it would have been a disappointment for his daughter to have gone to prom without having a date. For me, like, my biggest thought was on, I want to have a nice dress. I wasn't really stressed. Well, I think I was becoming more stressed as that pressure was placed on me to get a date from my dad. And at that age, being the only daughter and kind of I was definitely the kind of child who was always on her best behavior. I didn't like to disappoint authority figures in my life, and I didn't like to shake the boat. I wasn't a rebellious kid. I was pretty much like a good kid. Like, I never got suspended, never got expelled, minus a couple years in high school. For the most part, across my schooling journey, I always got good grades. Like, I was just that model student. And as a kid, like, I still did not want to disappoint my parents. I was like, well, my dad wants me to have a date. And so I ended up telling my dad that, oh, well, there is this boy that I like. And my dad was like, well, you should ask him to be your date. Knowing what I know now, I'm like, first of all, I'm okay going to prom with my friends. Like, my friends are going to be there. I'm fully fine taking pictures with my friends. Not having a date is not the ultimate disappointment. Just showing up, wearing a dress that I like, in a color that I like, having my hair done, showing up and just looking beautiful, that is enough in itself. And I think that the pressure to have placed upon me as, a young woman entering, about to become, an adult, well, a young adult at least, feeling as if I would be a disappointment by not having a prom date. And on top of that, feeling like it was my responsibility to ask the guy to be my date. And I know that there are thoughts about, and I think, again, I'm from the States, and there's often this stereotype or idea that, American women are like, very strong forward and like, very independent and taking action. I don't feel that's a healthy dynamic. I don't feel that, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we don't need to raise our daughters to feel like they have to be the ones to chase and pursue men. I mean, even I was on social media the other day, and these adult women were talking about like, well, should we chase the guy or be the one to like make the move? And I mean, again, everyone's entitled to think what they feel about it. I know that there have been women who have been the one to make the first move, and they're with their partner now. I just personally am of a different mindset as far as seeing how I want to really embody a more healthier feminine energy, where I recognize that I can attract what is meant for me, and I don't need to chase after it and put myself in insecurity and just kind of flipping the script where I'm becoming the chaser and not the one who should be attracting and receiving and being receptive. So I was definitely not raised to be in the receptive, receiving energy in my household. And I think that a lot of dynamics, played into that, with my parents. They divorced. My mom raised me and my brothers as a single parent. So, she never remarried after getting divorced. So she was just doing so much on her own and doing. And there weren't many moments where I saw her being the one to receive. Not even when my parents were married. Like, that's probably another topic in itself. But it wasn't a healthy dynamic as far as not really seeing my mother being in that receiving feminine energy. So how could she raise me to have that mindset? How could she instill that in me to receive, to not always to not feel as if I had to chase, which at 17 years old, feeling like, well, I have to be the one to ask for a prom date because, it would be such a disappointment if my, dad sees his daughter not having a date at the prom. He even said, I don't know if it was a joke, but he's like, well, if you don't have a date, then one of your brothers is going to be your date. And I was like, no way. No way I'm not asking my 13-year-old brother to be my prom date. I don't know how serious he was about that, but I think my dad just had this vision of what he wanted for his daughter and like these expectations. And I'm not a parent now. I just feel that this experience is really giving me some pointers and firsthand lessons of what I don't want to do when I have children. I don't want them to feel that they're not enough if they're not meeting an expectation. I want to raise them to be comfortable, to do what supports them, where they can feel like they're confident, they're enough as they are. They don't need to try to, you know, please their parents to kind of meet some expectations. So I ended up actually writing a note to the boy I had a crush on in my class, and it put me in this extremely uncomfortable position because it was like, well, I gave him the note, and actually I kind of knew deep down that this guy didn't want to go to the prom because he was a really shy guy, and I knew he didn't want to go. Like, he was very like just not into that sort of thing. Like, even me, I didn't go to any dances in high school. I didn't go to homecoming, junior prom. I didn't go to any of that. I just wasn't into that kind of thing. I knew I wanted to go to prom, and that was it. That was like the only high school like dance that I went to. So I wrote the guy a note, but then I was like, well, what do I do now? And it was like so awkward because he's shy. I'm shy about this kind of thing. So it was just this very, you know, awkward dynamic for like a couple months where it's like we're seeing each other in class. I'm hoping he'll say something about the note that I've written. But what I'm getting at is like by me chasing and like doing that, it's like I've kind of flipped the script where I'm like putting myself in the position where I have to feel that, oh, am I enough? Am I wanted? You know, is this good enough? And actually, when I think back to the earlier months of my senior year, when I was asked, you know, to the prom, like to me, that was a very balanced dynamic where I was getting the invitation. I didn't have to fully accept it, but just knowing that I was asked and I could have an opportunity to consider that invitation to be someone's date, that was a very healthy dynamic. It didn't give me stress. I didn't have to be the one like, you know, feeling, you know, anxiety in my stomach every time I went to class, like, oh, what is this boy thinking, or what's happening, and what's this? You know, I could see firsthand that I totally was not honoring and honoring myself. I was literally just doing this to make my dad happy and giving myself all this anxiety. And the ironic part, you know, I had a huge crush on this guy. What was ironic was at the end of senior year, this was like the last 3 weeks, my school, or at least our school was divided up into different like academic programs. So I was in this program called Classical Academy. So we took classes like related to like Latin. We studied like the Renaissance. And so the classes that were in the Classical Academy cohort, they would organize this Renaissance fair like at the end of the school year. And I didn't know it at the time until I was chosen for it, but they needed to have a king and a queen for the Renaissance fair. So I guess there was a vote. I don't know how this was chosen, but I kid you not, I was chosen to be the queen, and the guy I had a crush on was chosen to be the king. I can't make this up. So like literally the very guy that I felt so nervous around, that I was like, I wonder if he would be my prom date, instead of just like letting things be and just feeling like, you know what, I'm okay without a date, which actually I think I would have been okay without, you know, if the pressure wasn't placed on me. I think that, and again, you're a teenager, you're more impressionable. You know, I was again trying to be the people pleaser for my parents. Just showing up with my friends at prom would have been enough. But the irony of, by just allowing myself to receive the news that, oh, hey, you're the queen of the Renaissance fair. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't even know that I was being considered. But the fact that I went to school and my English teacher was like, oh, you've been chosen to be the queen of the Renaissance fair. And guess what? I won't say his name, but the guy, he's gonna be the king. And I was like, what? Like, I felt like I was in some kind of a dream. I was like, oh, so the guy that I've been stressing out over and going through all this anxiety, like ultimately we've been chosen to be king and queen. And this opportunity was brought into my sphere. I'm not a popular kid at school, which was like, I don't know how I was chosen. Like, I'm not popular. I almost feel like bringing up, I actually have my yearbook on the shelf. Maybe that's another another day. But yeah, we ended up being chosen to be king and queen. We had to have like a marriage or some kind of like some kind of ceremony or whatever during the Renaissance Fair, like this kind of simulation where we're like married, and it's it's just really cute. Like there actually is a photo in the yearbook of me and this guy standing next to each other, you know, just having this moment. And I'm like, so the whole time all I had to do was just sit back and just allow this to happen because it was going to happen anyway. I didn't have to like be anxious about if he would be my prom date, because guess what? He got to be my king at the Renaissance Fair and I was the queen. And so ultimately, and I'm getting this download, this revelation now, it's like I was always the queen the whole time. Like I was always the queen who was able to receive her king. Like I didn't have to do anything. I didn't even know that I was being chosen to be the queen of the Renaissance Fair. I was already the queen. I was chosen. And this guy was already chosen to be my king. And I was like, that's almost better than him being my prom date. We got to be king and queen for the day at the Renaissance Fair. I got like a dress. I got like a little floral, like, you know, headpiece. And so I was like, wow, wow. All I had to do was just receive. I didn't have to put myself out there, please my dad. Well, and it didn't stop there actually. I don't know if, well, yeah. So Renaissance Fair, going back to, it didn't stop there. It didn't stop there because again, I didn't want to disappoint my dad. It was like 2 weeks before the prom. The pressure's on me, like, are you gonna have a date? There was even a woman that I met from another church, and she ended up, I guess, intervening in the situation where she's like, oh, do you remember that guy that you met when we went on that that trip out of state? Like, and when I was in my senior year, I took like this trip to go to like these college visits down in like Atlanta, and you know, the HBCU was like an HBCU college tour. So there was a guy who went that also went the year before, because I did the trip the year before when I was 16. So she's like, do you remember that guy? I have his phone number. Maybe you could ask him to be your date. And yeah, I just feel like there was still this enabling of me like being the one to chase. Maybe, I don't know. I think that this was meant to teach me something that I can look back on. And I think that, again, I would have just been enough going to prom, hanging out with my friends, enjoying the food, enjoying the music, and just having a good time. So I actually ended up taking her advice. I called the guy. He was surprised, but he said yes. He didn't go to my school at all. He actually was a year younger than me. He went to a completely different high school. He was in his junior year. He said yes. I, went through the whole, list of what he would have to do. Like, I think his parents had to provide the money to buy his prom ticket. I let him know, like, just what to expect. Like, my dad would drive us. But just the whole thing of, like, I just kind of had to, I put myself, through this whole experience because I didn't want to disappoint others. And even after, like, the prom, the guy was a decent date. He was good looking. We took good pictures together. But, yeah, it just felt very, like, even the whole night of prom, like, we kind of hung out. I mean, we weren't like friends before. We just kind of knew each other in this indirect kind of like, oh, we went on that trip, together. We kind of talked a little bit, but we didn't know each other that well. It just felt the whole night was like, I liked my dress, but I felt like things were kind of forced for just kind of putting on, this, I don't want to say putting on a show, but just feeling like I was checking off all the boxes of what was expected when you go to prom, and this is what makes the people and the adults in your life happy. And even after prom, I would like still try to call this guy. Like, I was still like in this active, like, pursuing kind of energy where I was like, well, we went to prom, maybe I should try to keep in touch and like call him every week or so. And that's a whole nother thing. But lesson learned, to kind of wrap up the video. I know it's 24 minutes right now, but what I learned from this was I have learned to recognize I don't need to chase after people, and seeing that I am enough. I was enough at 17. I didn't have to feel as if I didn't have a date, that was the end of the world. And I think, again, it goes into parents can project their insecurities and their fears upon their children. Perhaps for my dad, he probably couldn't have fathomed going to prom without having a date. I mean, he would always talk about his prom date experience, and there's a whole story about how he got a prom date. And I think that there's just so much pressure, unnecessary pressure placed upon teenagers when it comes to like these high school proms. It's not the end all be all. No one really cares after you graduate high school. Honestly, again, I feel it's an industry, it's a money grab. You know, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old can't get married and buy a wedding dress, but they can buy a prom dress. They can, and you know, and I think that there's too much invested in this experience instead of really invested in really building your child from the inside out. Like instead of building, you know, a wardrobe around a prom experience, like, well, let's build up new values of self-esteem, of self-worth, of knowing that you're enough. And so if you're maybe a young girl watching my video, just know that you're enough. Like, you are meant to attract people towards you and to receive, and not be the one that's chasing after others to try to validate your worth or your existence. Like, just know that things are working out for you. Develop yourself, develop your gifts, your talents, your strengths, your confidence. And prom is just one day, it's a few hours out of a day. I'll say that. It's a few hours out of a day. What I loved most, more than anything from my high school experience, was graduation. That was the last day. I loved graduation more than I loved prom, because that was like the closure of all of it. I had a great day. And actually, I mentioned that I had my journal. I actually wanted to read a little bit about the whole prom experience, or like how I was feeling after I gave the note. I actually had highlighted a few things. Okay, so I think this was, I think the day or so after I gave the guy the note. So this is dated February 12th of 2004. Wow, this was 21 years ago. 21 years ago. I wanted pause for a moment to say, if you haven't already liked this video or subscribed, please subscribe. Leave a comment if you've been with me up to this point. Yeah, so thank you for being here and still being here to watch this video. So February 12th of 2004, this was the day that I gave the guy the note. I think this was a Friday. So I had like my last period class with this guy. And so I'll read a portion of what I wrote. It says, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do about asking him the past few days. I knew it would be very hard for me to ask him face to face. It wasn't until last night that it hit me that I should write a note, my dad's original plan for me. It's pretty ironic that everything he suggested I should do, I overlooked and ended up doing it anyway. I even did the circle one yes, no thing. Yeah, the circle yes or circle yes. Anyone ever like did one of those kinds of notes back in high school or middle school? It worked for me as a simple and a straight, Hey, it worked for me. It was simple and as straightforward as I was going to get. I have to say it again, but I'm still in disbelief that I actually asked a boy out. I never imagined I would do it. I would do that. Interesting. Okay. This is not something I would do right now, because I'm like, but this was 17-year-old me who was like, I need to, you know, give good news to my dad so I can, you know, make him happy. So I forgive my dad. This is what he thought was best, but it's about learning the lesson. It's about doing better for the next generation of children that we raise in the world. And I also wrote on the next page, I don't know how I'll feel Tuesday when I see him in homeroom. I say Tuesday because I remember the Monday of that week was President's Day, the holiday President's Day, so I didn't have school that Monday, so I was going back to school on Tuesday. So I said, I don't know how I feel Tuesday when I see him in homeroom, but I know that I'll be fine. Yeah, so, and then passages after this were me just writing about how anxious I was feeling because he and I didn't know what to say to each other and XYZ. And then I have a passage, the day that I finished prom. This was like May 29, 2004. I did it. I went to senior prom just a few hours ago. It was wonderful just seeing everyone there looking decked out, beautiful, and it was so priceless. I couldn't have experienced that any other way. I wrote, I'm so glad that I went and that I had a date. yeah, I think that, being glad I had a date because this was what was expected. They wanted me to have a date. And so, yeah, just lesson learned, clarity, being, you're a young girl, how we're raised is different based on how our parents were raised. They can only give us what they've gotten and where they've healed. If they haven't healed certain parts of themselves, they can't nurture those areas of us to show up more healed, especially, you know, young girls becoming women and the journey continuing and expressing and instilling better patterns and healthier ways of living. So I will leave it there. Maybe in the future I'll have like some additional like journal entries of the past younger version of me, but I would tell the little version of me that, well, for one, did you know that you're going to legally change your name at the age of 37? Did you know you're going to do that? You probably don't know that. You're going to, look back at this moment and realize that you were enough, that you didn't need to please your parents, because you're also going to recognize that they're humans too, and there's areas of their lives that they're still working through as well. So, and you're going to be okay, and you're going to see the world and experience so much. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned with me for my next video. Day 8 is coming up. So thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that if you're a woman watching this, that you are tapping into healing your feminine energy, that you're seeing yourself as the receiver, that you are enough, that you're not out here trying to chase and go after, trying to make people love and like you. It's about, do you love yourself, and knowing that you're enough as you are, so that way you can recognize what's for you and what's meant to come into your life. So thank you, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.